Welcome to From the Logo. Thanks for tuning in. Our buddy Colton just had a kid, just became a dad.
It's
How does
been
it feel?
it's been a wild time. So lack of sleep leaves less time to analyze what's going all on with the Blazers, but I've been doing my best to keep up with the team, and it's been a lot of downs rather than ups, sadly.
You
It,
watch any
it's
games this week?
Oh yeah, I've been watching them. My daughter, her name is Ellie, and she was 2-0 in the Ellie era with the two Mavericks wins until the last game against Philadelphia. So
Does
it's
she have
not
a
the
jersey? Does she have a jersey yet?
I mean, she does not have a jersey yet. No, no, none fit the newborn size that I found. But
it's not the worst time to check out from the Blazers just a little bit. This was a good week to be a brand new dad.
yeah, I mean, I still love the team. I'm still watching them, and I mean, after that last game with Philadelphia, it was tough to watch. I was probably throwing more temper tantrums than my newborn child at watching that game. It was embarrassing, frankly, especially in the first half. The Blazers played one of the most lackadaisical, for lack of a better term, halves of basketball I've seen maybe since the last year of Nate McMillan. Like it was crazy, crazy lackadaisical. There was no energy in the Moda Center in the Rose Garden, and the fans were booing, and it didn't really seem like the players cared. There was just so many turnovers, and they scored barely, they scored 14 points in the first quarter in 2023 NBA basketball and 20 in the second quarter. Like, how is that possible in this day and age with the great shooting and the lack, it's impossible to play defense now almost. It's hard to anyways. And you scored 34 points. Philadelphia didn't even seem like they were playing that well. But it was a rough first half, definitely. In the second half, it was too much to overcome.
I didn't watch it, really any of the game. I think I turned it on like in the third quarter, but I looked at halftime and saw it was 57-34, and I texted you guys, somebody stop the damn match. This is getting out of hand. The Blazers looked like a corpse on the box scores at least.
And that's not normally the problem we have. Like, even when the Blazers aren't playing well this season, it's usually because they're playing no defense. Usually the Blazers can score. We might have, sure, the other team might have 74 in the first half, but at least we've got 62, and this game was just like, it wasn't working on either side. Like you said, Colton, it wasn't even necessarily that the Sixers were hitting every shot or playing incredibly well. It didn't matter whether we were stopping them or not because we couldn't score ourselves. And that's a new problem, a fun, new, and exciting problem for the Blazers to have.
It
Um,
was it was really like just the turnovers were some of those where you're just like, dude, any simple pass that a middle school grade kid could make would have been a completed pass. It was like they just didn't care. And the energy was just not there from anybody outside of Eubanks and Nasir Little. Those are the two spark plugs in that game.
Yeah, Damian 6 of 21, which ends his hot play as of late. He had really caught fire over the last few, which is almost kind of in and of itself hard to watch sometimes when Damian's just on fire and the team's not really putting it together and winning around him. But moving on from that
I
Philly
mean,
game,
that really quick, that shows when Dame isn't scoring an efficient 40 points, how much everyone else is struggling around him. Like, what the heck? He has to be that efficient to even keep us in games.
he has to
Crazy.
be an Oscar Robertson level efficient scorer. I mean, it seems this isn't the first time that Damian Lillard has been brought up with Oscar Robertson. Like, that's one of those comparisons that gets made over and over. And again, we had a 4-game stretch, 35 points while shooting 55% or better. Hasn't been done since the Big O. And, still didn't, it gave us 2 wins at home. That's not enough from a stretch like that.
He's been a boss from the free throw line though lately. My goodness, even though he was 6 of 21, he still was able to pour in 25 points just because of his 10 for 10 from the free throw line number. And I'm just checking his over the past. Yeah, he was hold up just a second. 10 for 10 against Philly, 14 for 14 against Denver, 16 for 16 against Dallas, 10 for 10 against Dallas, 13 of 15 against Cleveland. So he hasn't missed a free throw in 50 attempts. I think he's 50 of his last 50 free throws. That's pretty good.
And yet it's not enough.
It's good to see though, honestly, because he was having this weird little, it was a short period of time where he was missing too many. It didn't go on for very long, but it wasn't very fun to watch. He was it seemed like he was making about 3 of 5 for like a 4 or 5 game stretch there. So back to it. Good to see.
And we take a look at his supporting cast in these past few games, including this last game. And you go down the line of the starting lineup, and it's just head-shakingly bad. Simons has looked very, very, very bad the last couple games. He's missing his catch and shoot opportunities. He's doing some very questionable turnovers. The defense is obviously not there, and that's all just cascading down on everybody else. I think he's in his head a little bit right now, especially with the trade deadline approaching. You can't know what he's feeling, but
showing his age a little bit, maybe 23 years old.
Maybe big stage, first time starting, and so
yeah,
you're probably right, totally.
First full season as a starter, right? Last year he wasn't even a starter until about halfway through the season.
Yeah, and you keep going on down the lineup. Nurkic was very, very soundly outplayed by Embiid and Jokic, which, okay, they're MVP candidates and MVPs for a reason, but Nurkic was very, very bad in both of those games against Philadelphia and Denver. And it makes you flash back to that series against Denver when Nurkic got badly outplayed. And that kind of fuels the fire of the people that say Nurkic might not be enough to get it done. He's a serviceable big, but man, he did not show up at all against either of those guys.
He'd be a great backup, but it's been the story with him for a long time now where he plays good against teams that don't have big guys, that don't have, really any size. But as soon as he matches up against one of those elite bigs, it's like, not only does he get outplayed, he becomes like a pretty big detriment to the team. He really has a very poor game, gets into foul trouble, and lets the other guy just completely get off on his game, completely be a game wrecker for the Trailblazers. It's pretty rough. At the very least, you'd hope that he'd be able to, keep them at their averages or something. But a lot of times they see Nurkic and they're like, okay, it's time for a 40-point explosion tonight.
I would really quick argue, like, some of that is on the perimeter defense. Like, Nurkic, he gets asked to do a lot sometimes just because of the fact that our guard perimeter defense gets blown by so many times. He's got to kind of shift over and try and stop the drive. And then the big behind him that is he's guarding, kind of gets those easier shots. But that just kind of lends itself to thinking, do we need a more mobile big or, along with other moves?
Along with what you were just saying with the, sometimes being the second line of defense with not such good perimeter defenders, a lot of it's switching too. He gets switched onto a smaller guy, and then his guy, like Jokic or Embiid, is going up against like Josh Hart, and that's where they're getting some of those points, is not against Nurkic directly. They're getting them against our like 3 that's 6'4" or whatever. And so it speaks to an issue we've talked about a lot, which is just size in general. We just don't have enough of it on the team. We can't really switch. And when we do, Embiid and Jokic get 40. And, it's somewhat on Nurk because he doesn't really step up enough into those moments. But some of it's just on the fact that he doesn't have anyone else out there to help him either. He can't stop those guys on a switch when he's, trying to keep up with someone faster and smaller than him. Hard to get over.
Yeah, and then it's a double-headed monster of 6'4" Josh Hart trying to guard Embiid while a 6'3" guard breaks down Nurkic and he has no prayer of staying in front of him. So it's like really all they have to do is hunt that switch. And if you got a good, big man who can come up and set a good solid screen and roll hard, then you're gonna have a lot of problems there in the pick and roll defense. And it's somewhat a team thing, but a lot of it, stems down to Nurk not really being able to handle the guards or the big in some level. But moving on to the Dallas, back to back. What happened there? Was that this the first and only team we've been able to beat in the last like 2 or 3 weeks? Is that a sign of Dallas struggling, which doesn't really seem like it's been the case this year? The Blazers just figure something out against them, because those were some of the best offensive performances we've seen from the team this year. I think both of the games were right up there among the league leaders of most efficient offensive performances from a team from the entire NBA this season. So what the hell happened there?
There's a couple things that happened from what I saw. The return of Gary Payton during those games really helped. The game that Luka played, because Luka only played one game, so we have to keep that in mind, because Dallas
played bad in that first game, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could find a highlight reel out there of Gary Payton making game-changing plays on Luka, forcing him into tough shots. We actually had a perimeter point of attack defender that was out there that was making Luka work for his baskets. And I don't think Dallas's supporting cast is built to overcome that when Luka scores 15 points or whatever he scored. And then the following game, Luka was out. So again, Dallas's supporting cast isn't really built to handle Luka's absence. So Dallas, if you can somehow find a way to scheme against Luka, they're a beatable team, by any team. But normally we don't have that point of attack defender when Gary Payton's out. But when he does play his little 15 minutes before he aggravates his injury again, he is a game changer.
It's funny you're talking about the defense against Dallas. They scored 119 in the first game and 123 in the second game, but the Blazers scored 136 and 140. So it feels like it was maybe more offensive than defensive, but I get what you're saying. I feel like Gary Payton, just from the eye test, is something that the Blazers just don't have on their team. A guy who's pretty high IQ, good defense, moves the ball real quickly. The difference between watching him get the ball and someone like Simons, obviously they have different skill sets. Stuff is, different things are asked of them. But when Gary Payton gets the ball, it just moves immediately. When Anthony Simons gets the ball, it's like 10, 12, 14 hard dribbles and then a pull up. Sometimes it's like
Shaden's in the corner wide open the whole time calling for the ball for a corner three, and Simons is like, nope, you're not going to take my spot.
Yeah, it's head shaking sometimes from just someone who likes to watch ball movement to see that the ball stick with Simon. Sometimes it's like, come on, dude, move the ball. And then when he does, sometimes he'll get in these little rhythms where he does move the ball, with not to the other team's hands, hopefully. But then it starts to look good again. It stops looking like that hero ball, but it's few and far between those moments.
What I've noticed is that a lot of times he will turn it over when he tries to move the ball, and then he never tries to move the ball again. I think that goes back a little bit to his youth, and also just needing to work on the ball control and ball protection, because when he turns the ball over 3 or 4 times in a quarter, he's afraid to give it up. He just wants to dribble it and shoot because he feels like he's at least in control of that, and it's on him if he misses, and he can live with a miss because I'm sure his coaches are telling him, shoot. He's a good shooter. And, but it's sad when the Blazers don't move the ball. And in the Dallas games, what we saw is that they got downhill with scoring. They were moving the ball. They had momentum. Obviously, Moto was rocking. But we had in both of those games, basically give or take a few points like Grant, Nurkic, and Simons all with 20 or more, and Lillard with about 40, and like those games, I mean, the Blazers aren't going to get beat when you've got 3 guys with 20 and 1 guy with 40. That's a lot of points. And we have that kind of talent on the team, but man, we got to be able to stop them at some point.
I also think, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to quickly point out that with Simons, kind of, you touched on it, but he's just maybe at this age and this stage of his career, he's not really seeing the floor properly. If he tries to move the ball, then, the defense reacts to it. He's not making the correct pass. And so he's sort of forced to play a little bit more one-dimensional, which is just dribble and try to find your own shot.
Yeah, he can telegraph passes too. He kind of has that mechanical, like, hesitation dribble, and then, okay, there's the guy, but it's too late at that point. He's a little step slow sometimes on those. And it comes down to youth, probably.
Yeah, hopefully he has the opportunity to correct that. I think, as any player does, just become more comfortable with the NBA game, more, adapt to moving the ball, finding your teammates, knowing where they're going to be, knowing where the defenses are going to be, and reacting accordingly.
So speaking of correcting, what can we do here to correct what's been going on with the Blazers with the roster that they have? I think a change needs to be made to the starting lineup. I think that the 3-guard lineup needs to end. I know that Nasir Little is not that much taller than Josh Hart, but Josh Hart has really struggled lately. He won't shoot. He won't shoot wide open shots. He pump fakes and drives into a crowd. In transition, he's just as reliable as ever, and he's a good rebounder. But Nasir Little is coming on strong in the last, 2 out of the last 3 games or whatever. He's played really well. He that has bolstered the bench a little bit more, but I really think that Nasir's skill set would fit really well with the starters. A little bit bigger, longer wingspan, really long wingspan from Nas. If he's hitting that 3 and providing that energy, I think they need to try something out to change out of the 3-guard lineup, and I think Nasir Little starting over Josh Hart would help. And it even might help the bench, because then you kind of have another ball handler coming off the bench. Hart would have more opportunities. I talked about it at the beginning of the year because I thought it was the right move already for the roster composition, and after the early hot start, I kind of tailed off in thinking that. But if Nas is healthy, I think he slots into that starting 3 and is a little bit more of a natural fit than Hart right now.
I would say that it's pretty undeniable that Nas is a true 3. He might not be that much taller than Josh Hart, but he plays like a 3, and he is a little bigger, and his wingspan is bigger, and he can take bigger guys. In that 76ers game, Josh Hart basically played twice as many minutes as Nas, 35 to 17. And Nas was 4 for 7 and Hart was 2 for 6. That's just what would have happened if Nas could have played twice as many minutes. Obviously, it doesn't always.
He would have got hurt.
That's true. I mean, that's true, but
yeah, that's the worry with Nasir Little, of course, is any sort of momentum that he gets is usually cut down by injuries. But I do agree with you guys that something probably has to be done as far as lineups go. Hopefully, switching Hart to the bench, he'd be able to find more of that offense that he, had last year, that it seemed like he was finding last year and has just completely gone out the window this year. It seemed to me early in the season that he just wasn't, he wanted to be the hard hat guy, the guy doing all the scrappy hard work and not really take the shots. And he kind of knew the team around him had shooters and offensive players around him, but we need him at this point, I feel like, to start looking for a shot a little bit more. I mean, he was averaging 18 points a game after he came to Portland last year, and
he was pulling up from 3. He won't now.
Yeah, we just haven't seen any of that this year.
Yeah, I think that he would just get so many more opportunities coming off the bench. He could be a ball handler that the team desperately needs. The ball, when he's a starter, the ball is always in Dame or Simon's hands. If he came off the bench, he'd be one of the primary guys with the ball. It would just open up and awaken different parts of his game that we need. And, I even think that, Simons could come off the bench, but we know that that's not happening. So I think that a realistic move to help would be moving Nas in, sooner rather than later to the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think that it does make sense too, because Josh Hart coming off the bench, I trust his decision making, and I think he'd be more confident to take the shots. Because right now, like you said, he's got, Dame and Simons. Of course, they're going to take the bulk of the shots if they're not going into the post. There's a lot of, and I mean, then Grant too. There's just a lot of scoring in the starting lineup as it is. And so Josh Hart isn't really getting into rhythm, and when he does end up with a fairly open three, it might be like the first shot he's taken all night. And so he's more likely to defer. And if he was in that secondary lineup, for one thing, maybe it would give him a little chip. I don't know, to try to prove that he's better than that, which is fine by me. If he's trying to play for a contract on another team next year or whatever, go for it if it helps us right now. But yeah, I'm all for that.
Even though it hasn't really showed up on the, the win-loss side of things yet, and the team still has looked pretty rough, I think it has been nice to see GP2 and Nos both come back. They kind of give us a little element to the team of just scrappiness, defense, athleticism, kind of flying around, that sort of element that the team has kind of been missing for a few months now, I think. And it has been nice to see. Hopefully that will start translating into more productive play from the team all around. Hopefully maybe a few lineup adjustments here or there can sort of get the most out of those guys. But I like Gary Payton from what I've seen so far from him. If he can stay healthy, I think that he, if not this year, moving forward, hopefully he could be a pretty big piece for the Blazers.
Yeah, it's a defensive presence that we haven't seen in a long time. And yeah, like you said, his ability to just fly around the floor and make plays happen. He started several fast breaks. In his first couple of games back, he finished a couple of breaks. He's
been hitting his shots.
Tenacious defender, and yeah, a pretty decent shooter. So yeah, I love when he's out there, and Nos too. And it does make us feel like a more complete team with those two guys coming off of the bench instead of, Greg Brown and just all these, 20-year-old guys.
Yeah. Shaedon and Jabari being our
I
first
love
two.
them. I love them, but they're not, they're not ready to be first option scorers off the bench.
Give Shaedon more shots.
I'm not against it.
If you're trying to go the tanking route, that's definitely the way to go at this stage.
He has the potential to be able to score better than a lot of those guys coming off the bench. He can shoot from all three levels. I mean, he only gets about 4 shots a game, and you're a 19-year-old rookie, and he's shooting a decent percent. Like, what happens if he shoots about 8 shots per game? If he makes his first couple, give him a couple more. Like, when he's in with Simons, he doesn't get the ball a lot, I've noticed. So
he was 1 for 6 last night.
I was about to say he's pretty streaky when you look at his stats. There's a lot of nights where it's pretty rough to, he's just not really hitting anything. And when he's your first or second option off the bench, it can kind of be pretty rough. He's just a young kid,
when he's hot, give him all the shots he wants. I want to see him gain confidence and build on that. But it's just night in and night out. Gary Payton and Nos have more experience. They know where their spots are and what to do to try to get a team actually functioning instead of just trying to get hot.
Right. Agreed.
You are right. Though he's shooting 40 in the month of January. He's shooting 46.7%, 32% from three, averaging about 6 shots a game. So it's, but if you look at the individual games, like some games 4 for 8, 5 for 7, other games 1 for 4, 1 for 4, 1 for 6. So he's a little streaky, but yeah, it's kind of whether or not you want to see what you got with them and sort of risk the win-loss, which I don't really know how well we're trending with that.
I was going to say, we're already going that way, win-loss. Like, what do you make of the team? Do you want to tank? Do you not want to tank? I mean, we're sitting here. Okay, let's break it down really quick. For the people that are saying, no, we can't tank. It's way too late to tank. Dame will never tank. Okay, people. Well, if we're looking at the standings right now, Portland is currently what? 12th in the West. We play the Lakers this weekend. If we lose, we're going down to 13th in the West. 13th in the West. I mean, to be fair, one like win streak here and there, you could catapult back in. But when you go to 13th in the West, right now, I think you're only 2 games back of the 6th highest lottery odds. That's a 9% chance, and the number one worst tanking team only has a 14% chance. That's only a 5% chance difference. Like you almost have as good of odds as anyone as getting the number one pick. That's right there. That's 2 games away from where we currently are with a mostly healthy roster. Dame's not going to sit here and stand for it, but we're playing Dame 40 minutes and we're still 2-8 out of our last 10 games. So what do you do? Like, I don't know. This draft is deep and has a lot of bigs.
Scoot Henderson, here we come.
I would take Scoot. Scoot is a dominant. He's like a Ja Morant build guard. Like pair Scoot.
Another guard. We could add him to the 3-guard lineup.
Oh, then you
4
would.
or 5 guards.
If you land Scoot, you clear the deck, and that sucks. But that's a talented player. And the rest of the top 14 of the draft right now projected, about 12 of the top 14 picks are 6'7" or taller. Those are players the Blazers could use. I mean, they might be raw at first, but man, you got to get talent. You got to get pieces, because if you make the playoffs, you lose the pick.
Would you keep Simons with Scoot, or would you trade everybody but Shaden and, of course, Drew Eubanks, the Oregon legend, to just have him come up and set screens for Scoot and Shaden all day?
I think you could keep Simons in this instance to play him at shooting guard, and you don't know how good.
3-guard lineup: Scoot, Shaden, and Simons. Our new 3-guard lineup.
Shaden could still be growing. Scoot's like what, 6'4". I know.
What would you get for Dame? What would you
see?
Just
I don't get paid to make the decisions here, but if you're getting a top 2 pick in this draft, I think that would be the unfortunate time to pull the trigger on a Dame trade. I'm not for trading Dame, but when you have a potential generational guard coming in, I think that would be a relevant time to do it, And you would hope that you would get Victor, right? You would hope that you would get Wembanyama, and then you wouldn't have as many problems. You would have size, you would have scoring, you would have defense, you would have everything right there. I ran the Tankathon odds one time for where we are right now and made it to the number 1 pick. I hit the button one time, so it can happen. Like where we are now, and if we move 3 spaces down, it's way more likely.
If we got Victor, would you keep Dame?
Victor and Dame could be a dominant combo. Just
that would be interesting. That would be interesting. I don't really. Yeah, you'd probably have to give it at least a year or 2. You could before you trade Dame, but we're not going to end up with any of those guys. We're going to end up with. I'm looking at the mock draft right now, and Ausar Thompson is where we're supposed to land, or Nick Smith, or somebody that's like a B level of all these guys that we're hoping and praying for.
Well,
what are your thoughts on this, Riley?
So, like you said, Colton, we're a game away from 13th. We're also a game and a half back from 6th.
I know.
That's the
The
West.
West is crazy, man.
I mean, if we just turn this around and go 7-3, 6-4, we could be like right back up out of the play-in and in the playoffs. And yeah, no, I am not for trading Dame for Scoot at all. No, I'm not ready for another generational talent that we worry about trying to build a team around for the next 20 years.
We haven't had that since what? Greg Oden? I'm ready to give that
Dame's a generational talent?
Not when he was coming into the draft.
Yeah, he wasn't really considered that coming in.
This
but
top 2 in the draft is looking like next level, like Ja or like the GOAT, like that's what they're comparing it to. So
75 best players of all time guard.
I get it. I
I'm
get
They
it.
always
yeah,
say
no,
about the top two players, though. They're like, Ben Simmons is going to be the next LeBron James. And he was coming out of college. And look where that landed the Philadelphia 76ers.
I'm
So
not
if
saying trade Dame for any player. I'm saying if you happen to get lucky and you get the number 2 pick in the draft, that's the only spot that Scoot's going to be taken. That I
I
would
feel
have
like
to think about.
I feel like that kind of is trading Dame for Scoot. I mean, you're not trading him like straight across, but you're saying if we get Scoot, trade Dame. It's sort of like swapping him
And then
for.
what
I'd
else do
take
you?
somebody else. I would take somebody else.
No, you.
100%.
That's how the Blazers missed Michael Jordan. They had Clyde Drexler, and they said, "No, we have Clyde Drexler. Let's take somebody
And it's
else."
how we ended up with Greg Oden. The draft
Greg
was
Oden was like the consensus number 1 over
the
Durant.
draft is a crapshoot every year. We could end up with Ben Simmons or we could end up with KD. You never know. It's not. I'm not. I just don't see that as the route to go, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not really in favor of tanking. Is I just don't think that we're going to become a contender through the draft at this point. I think it has to be through trades, and I
Even
think that we
looking
have
at
some pieces to do
looking
it.
at a team like OKC that spent the last like 5 years tanking, trying to get better through the draft.
2.
Their best player isn't even from the draft. He's from one of their trades that they made. So
They
it's
only
like
spent 2 years tanking, and they have a better record than we do.
2 years. Didn't they when they trade Westbrook and Paul George? Was that 20?
It's been like 2 years since they blew it up. 2019, 3
But
years.
like very few of their draft picks have even panned out. Chet's hurt. Like Josh Giddey's okay, but it's the guy that the young kid that they traded for, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That's the dude who's really
With
taking.
what assets? They're aging players that wasn't happening with.
Well, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with trading like some of our, older players that aren't working out for a Shea type of a player. And I would pair that with Dame all day long. No questions asked.
Yeah, I don't really know if we have anyone of value that's like even Westbrook level other than, Dame on our team. I mean, you might be able to get something for Simons, but he's not exactly an old veteran who's not working out.
I think we could get some value for people like Josh Hart and Nurkic. There's some value there. The Nurkic is valuable to some teams.
Yeah, it's just the center position is just pretty undervalued in the NBA, especially kind of a traditional, 7-foot big dude who doesn't move his feet and can't switch. All those things. I don't really know what team is going to be giving up young, prospects who could end up becoming stars for him. It'd be hard to find that sort of trade. But
let's check in really quick. So instead of tanking, do you guys think that you would still trade for DeAndre Ayton after the bad year that the Suns have had? Because that's a guy that could be gettable.
Yes,
I would love to pair DeAndre Ayton with Damian Lillard. I that's something I've wanted to see for several years. And if there's a way to make that happen, I think it's at least worth a try. I mean, if we could give Dame, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton, if it doesn't work at that point, he can't really complain. I mean, we're giving him what he needs to succeed, and it would be worth a shot.
Pick and roll Dame and Ayton would be lights out, especially since CP3 is washed this year. That's probably why Ayton's kind of fallen off, because CP3 is just gone. So
yeah,
I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about. Instead of tanking, if you go for a player like that, then I'm still on board. But that's just the breaks right there.
Both him and Booker have been hurt, so he's had to do a lot more of the work himself. He's not catching it as low as he would if he had Damian Lillard, running a pick and roll with them. So, but if we don't go the tanking route and if DeAndre Ayton doesn't come tomorrow, what do we have to do in the next week or so to get back on the winning track? Like you mentioned, we have Los Angeles on Sunday, San Antonio on Monday after that, then Utah, Toronto, and then the following Monday, Atlanta. So we have a homestand of
5 games.
Yeah, 5 more games. The Philadelphia game was the first of 6. So what do the Blazers need to do to get back on track? LA is obviously going to be a big test. LeBron's been playing really good lately. I heard they're getting Davis back, probably not by Sunday, but they're kind of building some momentum as the Blazers are losing momentum. What do the Blazers have to do?
I want to see more of the guys who are coming back from injury. Honestly, I want to, like we talked about, I want to see Nas move into the starting lineup. I want to see Josh Hart on the bench because I think he's going to be more effective there. It's not a dig on him as a player. It's just I think he's going to be better there. I think he'll play better, score more, and I think he'll help the team more. And I want to see GP2 play some serious minutes too, at least like consistently, you know. And so, I mean, some of that comes down to health. It only works if they stay healthy. I know they're both still kind of apparently nursing some stuff, but that's what I'd love to see happen in the next few games.
For me, it's simple. Couple things. Take care of the ball. No. Hey, I'd rather win, but hey, you got to get assets somehow. So I say take care of the ball, get quality shots, stick together on defense. That sounds like coach speak, but really simple as effort. Outside of the turnovers, a lot of the problems seem to be effort, getting off to slow starts. A lot of that could be on Billups. So I'd like to see a game, get off to good starts in games, make teams come to you.
ESPN Analytics, their matchup predictor has 70.2% chance that the Blazers would win, which I did not think would be the case. I thought they'd be all over LA's junk, but they got the Blazers having a good shot to win this. They won the first matchup of the season and lost and got completely destroyed in the second one. So this will be the tie-breaking game. They have another one in February. What I'd like to see from the Blazers is maybe to shut down LeBron just a little bit. I mean, you're not going to like completely get him out of the game, but he's been averaging 38 points, almost 10 rebounds, almost 10 assists over his last few games. He has some ankle soreness, apparently, which he's been playing through. So if you could get old man LeBron to just slow up a little bit, they have a chance because, you know, he's their only option really in the starting lineup. And then the other side of it is to just don't let Westbrook get off. The dude has been kind of playing good coming off the bench the last few weeks. And if you just don't let him have, you know, 20 plus and a triple double, then the Lakers are going to really struggle. You know, if you have Reeves and those sorts of, who else do they have? The dude from Oregon, I'm blanking on his name right now. But if you force their role players to become their, you know, score the points, then they show their limited depth pretty quickly.
How many points does LeBron need to pass Kareem? Because I just want to not let that happen. The way that the Blazers have been playing defense, just about anything's in reach. So let's not let him get to like, you know, 214 that he has left to pass Kareem or whatever.
Troy Brown Jr. is who I was trying to think of. But don't forget about Wenyen Gabriel and Thomas Bryant. Those guys are going to just completely destroy us if we let them.
Blazer legend Wenyen Gabriel.
He's gonna show us why we never should have gotten rid of him.
I put the over-under on LeBron against the Blazers at 40 points, and I think he gets the over. I think he'll hit about 42 points.
I'm worried about that.
The Blazers have no one to check him outside of Jeremy Grant, and guess who Jeremy Grant's going to be guarding? The point guard or the guy with the ball, and so no.
Which is usually LeBron, to be fair, but
yeah, but Grant's been guarding the. Yeah, you could be right. But then one screen puts him on like Lillard. So Lillard guarding LeBron. You know, Lillard's going to chase down block LeBron. We'll see.
The real over-under to keep an eye on is over-under 3 for poster dunks LeBron's going to have on Nurkic this game because he always seems to get at least one. Just massive facial, nuts in face dunk on poor Nurkic.
Oh, we need to win this game because if not, we're sliding into 13th in the West. That's crazy. I know it's no separation.
And just because fuck the Lakers is the other reason.
Yeah. PG podcast. Excuse me.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching from the logo. Our apologies to Mike Barrett. We ran out of time. even though he should be on the show here soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.